Welcome back to our show again. Today we have a very special guest here with us, Tony Lyons from Alphabet, which is a brand integration consulting company and that work with a lot of high-profile associations locally in Ottawa. Welcome, Tony.
Hey, nice to be here. Thanks for having me.
Oh, thanks for coming on. It is a treat to be talking to you about building brand because at heart, I love marketing. I know marketing is just one small part of the brand. So tell us a little bit about how you guys are unique because we were talking about it before this recording started, and it is very intriguing hearing all your stories and your brand journey.
Yeah, well, I come from a pretty broad background of what you'd call brand marketing. Originally started I was an illustrator, actually, cartoonist, way back, and then got into design, like graphic design, and then really was more intrigued with the narrative of a story more than anything, So how it looks is a big component, but what it actually really means substantively is where I found myself graduating towards, and that really is what branding should be, I think a lot of people who don't work in the industry think that the brand is like the logo or what it looks like,
Yeah.
And it's a component of it, but really it's what it means and how you drive that meaning, how you systemize it and codify it and be consistent with it over time and then deliver that narrative through tactics like digital marketing or advertising or content marketing, which you're familiar with, both online and offline, even events. I think that the new component that we're trying to get our clients to understand is that, yes, there is a marketing component to brand, but there's an operations component to brand that's probably more important. And that is when your member, whether it's a new member or a retained member, deals with you, what experience are they getting? Like literally from how somebody answers the phone to how quickly their problem gets resolved, to the sophistication of their online portal, to the value they're getting from their learning management system or certification products. All of those things reflect on your brand. They don't even reflect on your brand. They actually are your brand, because all of those things make somebody feel something. Behaviors are driven by feelings because at the end of the day, humans are feeling machines. And we act upon how we feel irrationally or rationally, mostly irrationally, unfortunately.
So from what I'm hearing so far, you're saying that the brand is way beyond what we see. Like, because I have that traditional old school image of branding. It's just a logo and what it says in that little line. And what you're saying is actually, which make a lot of sense. Like you're the first one who said this to me, to be honest. You're saying that the branding is actually what you do on a daily basis. And branding is just kind of an interpretation of what you do on a daily basis.
Yeah, think about it like your brand is the combination and integration of what you say and what you do. And those two things need to be tightly integrated. They're almost not integrated, they're symbiotic and synergistic. So if you're saying something that's not true in your outbound marketing or even your inbound marketing, and somebody says, oh, that seems like an interesting association to join or an event to go to, and then they get there and it's not what they expected, you now lied to that person.
Yep.
And what's the first thing that person's going to do in the modern world? If they get a bad experience of a service or a product, they're going to go onto their social network and they're going to amplify their displeasure, right? They're going to tell everybody about it.
Yeah.
So in the old world, when branding was considered advertising, right? Think about it like this, that good advertising will make a bad restaurant go out of business faster. Right? I don't know if you've ever heard that expression before. Okay. So that's a really simple way of thinking about it. So a lot of the times our clients will come to us and they'll go, we want to do a digital marketing program to encourage people to do something. And the first thing we will do is we will go through that process to do the thing that they want their members to do. So we'll click on a link, we'll go to the portal, we'll try to log in with our member ID if they have one or however it works, and we'll execute on that client's request. And if it's a decent process and it needs a little bit of polishing, we'll say, fine, let's do that.
Yeah.
Let's do that ingestion process to get people to do that. But if it's not a good process, we'll say, well, why don't you fix the experience before you tell anybody about it? Because otherwise you're going to have a bunch of dissatisfied clients, and it's going to take you a long time to recover your brand equity or your reputation from that. So why would you damage it with what you think is brand marketing by offering people a bad experience?
That makes so much sense now.
Yeah.
Like,
It's also easy for me to say, right?
Yes.
Because I totally realize that, a lot of associations are not big. There's not hundreds of people. There's maybe 2 or 3 people. They're strapped.
Yeah.
It's resource strapped. They're cash strapped. They're doing their best. I totally get it. But I think a lot of the time they're doing themselves a disservice by focusing on the wrong things. A lot of the time they're focusing on telling people stories that simply might not be true, as opposed to making the experience as good as it can be for that member and retaining that member in as many as they can before even trying to get or acquire new members.
So that leads to our second question. What are the strategies you're seeing that's working in membership acquisition and retention?
Well, our main types of association clients, to be honest, are large national associations, because we're based in Ottawa. Not all of your viewers might be in Ottawa. So we mostly work at a federal level with associations. They have similar challenges to local or provincial associations, but mostly what they're concerned with, their members at a national level are actually other associations, right? So an example would be Canadian Construction Association is a client of ours, really good client of ours. And the challenge that they have is to develop an advocacy program that makes sense to government, makes sense to the general public, and makes sense to their members. So self-advocacy, membership advocacy, and public advocacy, all designed to drive behavior change. And in order to do that, we've helped them develop a sort of a sub-brand, but it's called Talent Fits Here, and it's to address the massive labor shortfall in construction. It's not really a recruitment campaign per se. It's more of a way for the industry to demonstrate back to government that it's already changing, because government has this negative view of the construction industry as being overly male, not enough diversity, bad practices, not professional, all of these types of things. And that actually affects the federal government procurement process, because they've written in specific requirements for how they can procure construction. An example would be, if you're working on a federal government project, you'd need to have X percentage of people of color, Indigenous people, and women working on that project, which is an excellent policy. Nobody disagrees with it. The problem is that most construction companies can't get people to work on the project at all, never mind having a diverse workforce. So it's a delicate nuance, because whereas CCA and the industry at large fully endorses the idea of DEIA, it's absolutely currently impossible for companies to comply. And as a result, what's happening is that large multinationals are getting contracts because they can point to massive workforces that might not even be working on the project. They're just working for the company. Whereas smaller companies just can't, and they're losing out, and it's unfair. So Talent Fits Here was designed to show government we're already really trying, and here are some examples of it, but also to encourage people in the public to consider a career in construction. Like, it's not about swinging hammers or digging holes necessarily. It's about architecture, design, technology, strategy, all of the things of running a business. And then it's also a vehicle and a voice for CCA's member organizations to go, this is a platform that we can tell these great stories of people who are working for us, and we can be proud of it. So it's actually a labor retention technique for those companies too. So thinking about it from a government, member, and public point of view.
So from what I'm hearing, to retain members and to attract new members, even at the national organization level, you're still talking about the servicing, doing the government advocacy, providing a lot of values to the members' organizations as well. So both of them. And then there's one last one.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it's about providing value back to your members, right? If in terms of a strategic approach to that, think about it like through the lens of brand, actually, is a good way of thinking about it. You don't invent a brand story or a narrative, you uncover it. It's already there for the most part, you know. You just need to codify it and systemize it so that you're consistent with it in your actions and in your communications. So the only way to do that is through stakeholder engagement. So if you want somebody to accept the message that you're giving them and find value in it, ask them what's valuable to them. Now, I know people watching or listening to this will go, we do endless member surveys and we know what they want. And I'm sure that is true. But are you actually uncovering the truth from those things? Are you operating in a more tactical mindset as opposed to a strategic mindset? You know, because you can do so many digital tools and and you're probably doing as much as you possibly can from a resource and budget point of view. But are you engendering purpose and passion in being part of your organization? You know, the emotional side of the decision-making process. There's two sides. There's a logical side and there's an emotional side. They're connected because I want to prove that how I feel is true by you proving it to me with some tangible proof point. So a collection of proof points will make me feel delighted and like you more. But there's probably another purposeful story that you're not telling your membership. Like a sense of assemblement, I guess is what it's called. And I think it's what it's called in French. Apologies to Francophones.
I do not speak French at all.
So you know, it's a sense of purpose and being, and a sense of that I belong somewhere. You know. So an example of this was we did a project for the Canadian Association of Medical Radiation Technologists, CAMRT. It was a small project, and they came to us and they said, our members are highly trained lab technicians, right? But as far as the medical industry is concerned, at administrative level and other professionals, they're considered to be button pushers, right? They're not adding any value to the process of radiation technology. Even within CAMRT, there's a sort of a fragmented approach to people who do nuclear medicine versus people that don't, right? So, and even within that small community, they still have a hard time establishing a collective. So we didn't do a deep engagement with them. But we did do some stakeholder interviews and asking, you know, people on the ground how they felt about things and what mattered to them. Universally, it was that they just felt that they wanted to be respected. They wanted to be respected more. And the tangible outcome of that could be at some point a collective bargaining agreement for pay or something like that. I don't know. But our role was to give them purpose and voice, right? So we created a little campaign, and it was really simple, and it wasn't digital. It was a collection of posters. And we got photographs of MRTs, and we wrote headlines on across those photographs. And out of those headlines, we removed the letters MRT. We literally cut them out of the posters so that when you read it, it was hard. You had to think about what that statement meant. Like maybe it's more than a broken bone, for example, because sometimes a broken bone can be, an indicator of maybe either osteoarthritis or maybe something more serious like a cancer or something like that. But if you don't have the MRT, you don't have the full story. Right.
Okay.
So when you remove MRT, literally the letters MRT out of the statement, you now do not have the full story. And it was a very tangible proof point to people on the ground there and people who were visiting the clinics that there were, because there's these posters with holes in them with letters removed, and it made them think about, when you take the MRT out of the equation, I don't fully understand what's going on. And it was really well received by their community. And they said for the first time, MRTs as a collective felt like they actually belonged to something, even though the association had been around for quite a while. So I regard that as a, albeit qualitative, a success story.
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
people, when they're interviewed, say, that gave me voice and I feel better about it. What's the tangible outcome of it? It's hard to
Membership
quantify.
satisfaction.
But membership satisfaction. So hopefully, it was a small engagement, so we didn't follow it through to what the numbers were or anything like that, or even if they acquired new members. But I think it's a good way of thinking about a brand narrative differently and giving voice to your membership. Not just giving them practical tools, but giving them voice and a sense of belonging.
That's a cool story, really cool story. I appreciate that. Now, last question. What's the one idea our viewers can implement to create a stronger association?
Oh, that's really hard. So from my point of view, and maybe our company, Alphabet, is an outlier in this regard, but I don't think so. I think smart C-suite understand the power of brand, and they understand what it's supposed to do. So if you look at it through the lens of brand, we feel that the single most important thing you can do is to fully understand it and uncover it. Right? I think I mentioned earlier on, or maybe I didn't, but that you don't invent your brand narrative. You uncover your brand narrative. It already exists in some form. Now, it's probably fragmented because you're going to have different types of members and partners and stakeholders, and maybe if you're really big, the public, and potentially local, provincial, or federal government, who will think a certain way about either your association as an entity, as an administrative body, or your industry, right? What we try to do is to get the associations to stop thinking about themselves as a collection of people in a building, probably in Ottawa, and administrating things, right? That is not who you are. Who you are is the voice of the industry. Now, they say that. A lot of them say, yeah, we already do that. But they're not. They're just not doing it because they haven't gone and asked people what they really think and how they feel and what's important to them. And unless you do that, and the thing about it too is, and this may sound completely self-serving, and maybe it is, doing your own brand story or trying to uncover your own brand story is like doing psychotherapy on yourself. It really is.
I agree.
You can't do it because you can't ask yourself the hard questions. And if you do ask yourself the hard questions, you're not going to give yourself a straight answer. So it's almost, I won't say it's completely pointless, but it's to the point where you're going to uncover the hard truths. And sometimes they're hard, sometimes they're positive, and sometimes they're just haven't been uncovered. You need an external person to do it, and you need a process to bring you through it. And that's the value of brand consulting, I believe. Again, not everybody has budget for it, but a little example, if you don't mind. It's not an association, but it is a not-for-profit. It's a well-known healthcare institution here in Ottawa. Been around for a really long time, since the 1800s. And it served a very particular community, right? And over time, it's evolved, and that it's in seniors care. And over time, as you can imagine, seniors care has evolved, and there's more seniors now, and will be, as the rate of morbidity goes up and people live longer. The need is going to be increased. what this organization was doing, and when we did a 2-year brand program, by the way, it was a full 2-year engagement. It was over COVID, so that's why it took so long. But we talked to 37 different stakeholder groups, like hundreds of people.
Yep.
And out of that, we developed a key findings report. And those key findings reports uncover themes. If the same themes emerge with all of the different groups, whether in this case it was a nurse practitioner or a cleaner, right up to a physician or a researcher, right up to an administrator, right to a donor partner,
Yep.
or another healthcare partner. And they all said the same thing. And one of the things that they said was, what we do here is that every single activity we undertake in care is research, right? And from that, we develop white papers and methodologies and processes that we then systemize and we give to other seniors care institutions. And we try to get them to do it, because we know that over time we see improved patient outcomes if you do this. So if they do it, we're going to raise the level of care for all seniors
All across the
everywhere.
board. Oh.
And they don't monetize that. It's altruistic. They just want all the care to be better. And I said, well, that is an incredibly valuable brand narrative.
Yeah.
And they're like, no. That's just something we do. We don't want to talk about that. So we eventually convinced them that that's now one of their pillars of what they talk about. And that was already there. But they didn't think it was important until somebody objectively looked at it and said, you need to tell that story, because that is hugely valuable from an HR retention and recruitment point of view, which is incredibly important in healthcare. Donor acquisition, like,
Absolutely.
wouldn't a donor want to give to an organization that gives to other people and makes everything better? That's what high net worth donors want. They want their money to have a big impact, you know? And then wouldn't it be really valuable so that when people who are receiving the care and who live there, because it's a long-term care facility as well, understand why the processes are happening, that their participation will actually live beyond them, you know? And like one of the really poignant things that we heard through that process was that the organization is there to give people a good death, you know? Which is a kind of a morbid thing when you think about it, but that's the reality of seniors care, long-term care. The best possible death that they can have, you know? And then that their memory lives on through the research learnings that have been found. So that's an uncovered truth. And I think that if organizations go through that and they find that truth, they will find those nuggets that will, I think, transform their brand narrative and hopefully how people feel and think and do as it relates to their messaging.
Well, Tony, that was powerful. Thank you so much for coming on. Those are like amazing stories that I've never expected talking about branding and that would come out. So I really appreciate all the sharing.
No problem. It's delighted to be here. Thanks very much for having me.
So for anyone that wants to reach out to you to uncover their brand, how do they reach out to you?
Well, the simplest way is to go to alphabetcreative.com. You'll find a form on there, or you can just call us.
Yeah.
I probably shouldn't give my phone number out, but
Or
you can email me.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Business phone number. They can find you on the website.
Find me on the website.
Yes.
It's probably the easiest way.
Yeah,
info@alphabetcreative.com. Just
Awesome.
Google it and you can find us. We're pretty good.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.